starts to go quite smoothly. I hope you understand my bad English. Hope so. If you don't, please ask. You may ask in Russia. I don't understand any Russia, but then I hope somebody of your friends could help us. So let's try to handle this. You can ask in English, in German, in Swedish, in Finnish, but not in Russia. Please. No, no in Russia. Sorry. Okay, it's a great honor for me to be here in a big university because I come from a small university. But I think it's very understandable. Finland is a little bit smaller country than Russia, and for that reason our universities are also smaller. In my university we have only 4,500 students. You have here how many? Sorry? 27,000. So you can see the difference. And all the numbers are much smaller than what you have here. In our university, we teach with two languages, Finnish and English, and I'm head of our English IT degree program. So that is the field where I'm working. But you are not interested about these things. No, you're not. So for that reason, we will go to myself. No. We will go just to those things that what I will do here this week. So if you don't like what you hear today, please avoid to be tomorrow and day after tomorrow present on those times because I will be speaking again then. So this is the timetable for me. And today I'm going to tell you about access control on IP networks. The big problem for me is that I don't know how good you are. Is it so that I should be there and you should be here? That you should be teaching these things to me? I don't know. So could you please, am I right that there are students, first year students here, second year students, also third year students? No, first and second year students. Okay. Damn, I'm afraid of those fourth year students. They might be so clever that they know more than I do. Well, we will see. Have you studied about networking? Not really? Okay. Anyway, I will ask you some things that you can just answer by raising your hand. This is also the way to see me that you have not yet fallen asleep. So, if you know what is an IP address, please raise your hand. Okay. Do you know what is a TCP port number? Okay. Do you know how does packet filtering work on a firewall? A little bit like this. Yeah. Good. Now I know where we are. So that this is like giving me the idea that will I jump immediately to my slides 286? No, I don't have that many slides, don't be afraid. But the idea is just that I know how we go further. So I will not ask the other questions. I just wanted in a way to get a little bit of knowledge where you are, and this way adjust my speech to that. Remember, please, if you don't understand me, comment, ask. Okay, because there was a little bit of uncertainty about something, we will take first look how IP network works. I need 3 volunteers, 3 students. Thank you, appreciate. 2 more, please, please. Thank you. Okay, could you please write your name here? And I ask you to write your name too. With a big letter, so that I... No, not you. Come on. Now you understand that everything here is just playing a trick. I want you to know. Okay. Now, you are the device on the internet. Please come here. You are on that side. Now I have some information I want to send to Sergey. Did I pronounce it roughly like that? Yeah? Okay. I give here this paper for you. Now, to whom you are going to give it?
To Sergey.
Yeah. He's clever. Let's give big hands to him. He was able to do this. Great job. And Nastya. Even better. He was able to do it faster. What happened here was that we had here an internet router which was able to deliver information to the right place based on what?
IP. Yes.
I don't see any IP here. I see the name, but you are absolutely right. The idea here is that here we had just the name, but the name was ID of yours. So you know that this belongs to him, and you knew that the other one belonged to her. So similar way. You may go, but I will teach you a little bit more later. Go down to your place. Okay, so the idea is that on internet we must also have this unique identifier. In this case it was the name. On internet it was just like you said, IP address. IP address is a way we are able to identify any computer on internet. So, this means that on internet we don't send blank pieces of paper, but we send IP packages. And in IP packages we have the destination address. For example, the name of Sergey. And this way we were able to send the information to the right place. Now, that's fine. We understand that actually what internet does, it is taking this kind of pieces and sending them to the right direction based on not the names but IP addresses. For that reason we can say that IP address is like a telephone number on internet. It is not exactly the same thing, but it is like meaning the same thing. So if I want to call to you, for example, if I know just your telephone number, I will be able to call to you. Same thing on internet. All computers must have unique IP addresses. I'm afraid that you are far too young, but do you still remember when telephone looked like this? Yeah. You do? Good. I'm not that old because I still remember that. Okay. Typically, at that time, at least in Finland, it was so that there was one telephone in a house. I mean, if you had a one family house, there was one telephone. Not like now that even the 3-year-old daughter has her own mobile phone. But the idea is that everyone didn't have a personal phone, but it was like a telephone for a house. Was that a little bit similar thing here in Russia? Yeah. Yeah, so you understand the point. What typically happened at that time was that our telephone rang, I went there and answered, Matti Koivisto, and of course nobody ever called to me. They only called to my beautiful daughters. I mean, you know, the guys were calling to them, you know, that's the very typical way of life. So, what was the next thing that they did? The other person on the phone said that, is Laura, that is the name of my oldest daughter, is Laura home? So what we understand here that it was not enough that the caller knew the telephone number of our house, but he must also know the name of my oldest daughter. So there were two things. It was not enough that we knew that this was for Sergei, but it should be said that this is for Sergei's right hand, not to the left hand. And because computers are fast idiots, we cannot in a way start to ask these questions, but we must have some technical way to identify the final destination. For example, when you are surfing on the internet, you have at the same time, you have Google open, then you have this contact or something like that in another window. Am I right? Yes. So it means that there are like at least 2 windows open at the same time. Your computer is identified by IP address. But we have to be able to say, does this information belong to this Google session or does it belong to this social media thing? The first student decided to leave the classroom. Okay. And to be able to identify not only the computer, we need something else. And that is what is the TCP port number. Those of you who know more about this, you may start to say that, don't you know about UDP protocol and so on? Yes, I do, but I try to keep this quite simple, so I don't want to go to the details. So the idea is just that, yes, we have IP address to identify the physical device, and then we need something more to point the final destination, which is, for example, this window on browser, this window, or browser window, and that is why we need the port number. So 2 things are needed for our communications. I think it's time for us to invite our 3 great role players again here. Please. Okay. May I have that one? Okay. As we can see, here we have a strong guy, and what he is good for, he is a guard in a prison. You are like a policeman or someone who is guarding these 2 people. We have here a dangerous criminal. Nothing against you. And then we have here just poor little girl who was not able to pay all the taxes, and for that reason she is in a prison. Now, because this extremely dangerous criminal, a mafia boss, here, we have to take care that he doesn't receive any information from the outside world, because he will continue his criminal work from there. On the other hand, The mother wants to remember her beautiful daughter who's in prison. So now we will see what our God will do. Here is a message for Nastia. What are you going to do? Okay. He made a decision that, okay, this letter is for her. No fear, there's nothing dangerous that will happen now. Now we will see when this message to the dangerous mafia boss is going on. What is he going to do now? Oh, we will fire him. Oh, obviously he's corrupted. You see, he's paying for him. Because very likely, if he were doing his job right, he would say, to this dangerous criminal, absolutely not. Please, thank you. Yeah. So, what was this here trying to represent is that on internet, we sometimes have situations when we have to control the traffic, that we don't allow all the traffic to go through, because it might be used for that kind of purposes that we don't want it to be used. Like messages for big mafia guys or something like that. So, this one leads us to similar situation on the internet. That sometimes we send those IP packages using IP addresses, but there is devices on the between the source and destination, and those devices sometimes say that, yes, I don't see any problem to forwarding this traffic, but sometimes they see that, damn, this looks dangerous. We will forget it. And that is what I'm now going to talk to you. It's about how we are going to decide and how we deny or allow some traffic. Have you understood what I have said so far? More or less? More. Good. When internet was developed, I don't mean that very early day when actually the origin of internet is based on Cold War, but I don't go to that, I go to the academic time, so that when the internet was used in an academic purposes, I mean that the universities were connected to the internet and it was not yet used for commercial purposes. The situation was so that there were only good people. I mean, there was no need to guide people like you. They were all like you. Yeah. No. However, we have, so I hope you understand, I have a bad sense of humor, hope you don't mind. Yeah. Anyway, when the internet became commercial, when companies started to be part of internet, then security started to be an important issue. Then we started to make decisions. Is this traffic okay or is it not? And today, traffic between networks and devices are controlled in many different devices, like firewalls and routers. I believe that you have heard the names firewall and router at some point of your studies. If you have not, you have been doing what you are doing now. I mean, you are sleeping. Also on other lectures, not only mine. Okay. So, it's important now to take a little look what information do they use in decision making. I mean, if we have a firewall, if we have a router, which makes the job that you did. You either allowed or denied the traffic. what information they use in this case. Actually, they have the same problem that you had. You had quite limited information. You had only the name of the receiver in your piece of paper. The routers and firewalls, sorry, I'm walking. I know I should be like this. Sorry. The thing is that router and firewall, when they make these decisions, they don't have too many pieces of information available. Actually, they have to base their decisions on source and destination IP addresses, maybe those port numbers were those things which I used there as an example, the name of my oldest daughter, so that we were able to separate the final destination, and maybe some other pieces of information. And the way to control this traffic is that we use filters. You know, filter is like that. You may have something that, okay, does any of the ladies do any cake baking? Do you bake cakes? You only buy. Damn. Okay, this was just, I just thought that if somebody said that, yes, I do, then I would say that, please bring one for me tomorrow. No. No, the idea is just that if you make a bake and you want to have a sugar cover on it, you may take some form of sugar and then have a filter that you do this, that it goes very softly there. And if there are any bigger part of sugar, they don't go through the filter. The same idea here is that we have some kind of filters which says that yes, this traffic can go through and this traffic cannot go through. And if we think about the internet, there are these routers which contains this kind of filters, and we have different kind of filters. Some filters are very basic. There is like some filters which are based on source address only for the sending IP address. Why would we like to use that kind of thing? Okay, let's say that you are a network manager in a company. Then the worst thing that you can imagine happens. The worst thing that can happen to the network manager is that the son of the boss come to work for the company for summer. And it means that the son of the boss is working there on a company. Working. Well, he is just there and surfing on the internet. And however, it would be possible for the network manager to say that any traffic coming from the boss son's computer will be filtered. No access to internet. Everybody else will be able to go to internet, but no. Boss's son. Okay. You have to hope that neither the son or the boss know anything about networking, because otherwise you will lose your job. But the thing is that you can have this very simple kind of filter. However, these filters are quite seldom used, but instead we want to have more complicated filters. Filters that analyze not only source address, but also the destination address. Like in your case, the destination address was their names. And there might be so that if it was for Sergei's left hand or right hand, this is the TCP port number, and some other information. I don't go to the details, I just want here now you to get the idea that we can restrict the traffic a little bit different ways. Okay, I mentioned Cisco here because our university is part of Cisco Network Academy, and this is a global program which gives us a possibility to have the real devices in our labs, and this way we want to combine not only this kind of theory sessions but also combine this with practical things that we do in our lab. So all the students in our university would now implement their first IP filter. Unfortunately, we don't now have the possibility here, but I will try to demonstrate this to you. Some part of this presentation that I will, or thing that I will do here, it's a little bit difficult to see because I cannot increase the font size, but I will do so that I copy the text to Notepad so that you can see it then in a bigger format. I will now use this kind of simulation environment to simulate you what these filters do. So, we will create very small network. Our very small network is based on 2 routers. I have now here 2 routers, and then I will add here 2 switches. Please tell me, what is the difference between a router and a switch? They are both boxes. Yeah. A router is a device that connects networks together. Switch is a device that connects computers together. Switch connects computers together so that we have a network. Then when we want to connect this network to other networks, we need a router. Again, if here is somebody who is really deep on this issue, you may have an academic disagreement with my very simple definition here, but at this level it's enough that we think about this way. So, for that reason, what we still need is that we need computers. I will put only 1 computer in this network and 2 computers on other network. Okay. Yeah, and nothing is connected. So the boxes are there. Nothing is connected. So what we need is that we need to connect these devices to each other. I just do something that I never allow my students to do, because now I do so that the program selects the right kind of connection for me, not so that I will select the right kind of cable. But in my classroom we always have full democracy. 1 man, 1 vote, and the vote is here. So because I decided to do things this way, you cannot say anything. So now the idea is that we have here our network, 2 networks, or actually, sorry, we have 3 networks here. We have 1 network where there is 1 computer, 1 switch, and this part of a router. Then the second network is between these 2 routers. And the third network is then on that side. Okay, what is now the situation? None of the devices has any names. There is no Sergeys or whatever. So we have to assign IP addresses for all these devices before we are able to communicate, because it is totally impossible for us to identify these devices if we don't have IP addresses on them. So for that reason, I will assign an IP address. You may have learned about these digits when you have. It says here default gateway. Does any of you know what is the default gateway? I assigned an IP address for this one, and I said that the IP address of this device is 192.168.102. Then I said that there's a default gateway 101. Does any of you know what is the default gateway? Router, yeah. The default gateway is like that door. It's the way to go out. And it means that for this device, the way to go out is this way. Because this one will lead it to all other networks. So for that reason, because I said that the default gateway IP address of this PC is 101, I must give to this port that address, or it does not work. Actually, I don't want to take too much time here. I will actually make this a little bit simplified presentation so that I will remove one of those devices so that we are able to make this a little bit faster. I will do so that I will have only one router, because otherwise it will take a little bit longer time. Just a second. Okay, I will have to select this one first. And the idea is that what we want to have is that we want to have now configure this router a little bit. Let's configure it a little bit. So this is the thing that is a little bit difficult for you to see. So for that reason I will put everything I write here also to notepad that you will be able to see it. Okay. What is the problem is that I have to find the right port here before I'm able to go further. So I will configure the fast Ethernet port 0/0 and I will assign here the IP address, which is 192.168.101, and I have to specify the subnet mask as well, and I will turn it on. So actually I will now do what I promised. The commands that I entered there are just very simple configuration commands of a router, so that I say to a router that yes, your IP address is something like that. However, router has multiple interfaces, and for that reason I have to configure another interface as well. And I enter the similar kind of commands for that one. But now the address that I will use is a little bit differently, because we remember that all devices needed a unique IP address, and for that reason I now enter the similar kind of commands here, but this way I gave the IP address for another interface of a router. So now it means that I have assigned IP addresses for these two interfaces. There is obviously still some challenge that I have on that side. I will check that. And I will then continue this work. But now I recommend that I will do the following things. I will do so that I will assign the IP addresses for the servers and so on while you are having a little break. So because I think we deserve now a little break, so let's have something like 5 minutes break, and after that we will continue. Agree? Now you started to like me. The first time, the best part of my speech. Let's have a break. So, have a break, and I will, during that time, I will, in a way, no need for restrict any traffic. We are all good people for that reason. No controls, no secret, everything is accessible here. So it means that if here on this PC I will start a browser. Of course, I hope you understand that because this is a simulation environment, the browser doesn't look what you are used to. So this is very simplified version of a browser, but this is a simulation environment. And the idea is that I will now, from this PC, I will use the browser to create a connection to server 1 here. Sorry, server 0 first. Okay, now you are saying that those Finns, they are so stupid. They don't know that when you use browser, you don't type some mysterious IP addresses, but you type there the name, google.com or something like that. However, in our network, we don't now have a domain name server. And because we don't have domain name server, we have to use the IP addresses. It is like with your mobile phone. If you are calling first time to somebody, you dial the number. After that, you add his or her name to your address book, and you don't have to use the number after that. But you just use the name. And I pointed out here the IP address of the server 0, and this was what the server gave to me. I did not create anything cool looking flash containing web page, but very simple, server 0, so that we just know that it's there. And then I will change the IP address to correspond the IP address of this one, and now, yes, it's the server 1 that is responding. Now, something serious happened. We start to have a secret. I have to check which server I decided to use it. Sorry, I will just check that I don't. Okay, on server 1, we have very secret information. What could be very secret information? The results of Russian presidential elections. Nobody knows who's going to win, so that is a big secret. So we have this wholly secret information stored there on a server. And for that reason, we don't want the outsiders to have an access to that information. So, this now brings us to this issue that we have to start to create filters. And what does the filter look like? Here is an example of a filter that I'm going to apply soon here in this simulation environment. It says that it permits IP traffic from any IP address as long as the destination is the IP address mentioned there. So it means that we allow access to server 0, but we will deny all other traffic. I will now apply this filter to our router. So I will configure the router a little bit. And I will just place this filter that we have created, this filter here. I will start to say that let's use it. Okay, it was just some command. The command itself is not interesting and important. The idea is that we should now have a filter here. And the filter will provide us now this situation that if we try to go to the server that we were able to access earlier, we are no longer able to do that because the filter says, did what you did for the messages for server after I instructed. The same way I had to instruct the router to behave properly. So we are not able to go anymore to see the results of the presidential election now because the access to that server is denied. However, I'm still able to have access to that server which doesn't contain this kind of information. And that is what the access control is all about. That we must be able to control where we allow people to have an access and where we say, no, you can't go there. It's a little bit like, let's say that you go in a restaurant and there is, at some door there is a sign, staff only. You don't want customers to go there. The same way we are controlling here the traffic. Okay, now you can start to think that, okay, we know now everything about access control. So let's move to the next topic. I know everything about this thing. I have extremely sad news for you. If this is all you know about access control, you don't know practically anything. Based on this kind of filters or access control list, is like I said, used to control which packets can go through and which packets cannot go through. And however, they have their limitations, serious limitations. For example, our access control list would protect us for having access to that server, but it does not provide us security, for example, against different kind of attacks. So, what do I mean by this? Have you heard about a concept called denial of service? Have you ever heard a concept called denial of service? Yes. Some of you have, some of you have not. The idea is like that. Okay, in Finland we have an environmental movement which says that ladies should not wear furs. I mean that kind of skin of animals or something like that. So the furs, that they should not do that. That it is like not good for the animals point of view, that they are just kept to, in a way, to get the furs for ladies. I have no political opinion in this matter, but I use this just as an example. What the environmental movement did in Helsinki was that there was a group of people who came in front of the place where they were selling these products. And they chained themselves to the door, and this way they prevented any customers to have an access to the shop. So in the real world they created a denial of service system so that the customers were not able to go to the shop because the environmentalists were blocking and they used chains to connect themselves there. We can have similar kind of denial of service attacks on internet so that we could do, for example, so that we put so much traffic on a computer that it cannot do its actual job. And that is what denial of service things are in a very simple way. Of course, you could specify it a more complicated way, but keep somebody busy so that the device cannot do its actual job. And the problem is that if we have very simple access control lists, we cannot fight against this kind of denial of service attacks. Especially we cannot protect ourselves against distributed denial of service attack. What does this mean? That, okay, in the very early days of internet, it was possible for you that if you had, typically it was the university students. I don't know why all bad things come from the university students, but anyway, it was the university students, typically in the United States, that they used the calculation power of their university, for example, just to send ping messages that you test the connectivity, can I reach, of some website. And because they created it so that they had very powerful computer, it was causing a big problems on the other side. Okay, actually using access control this is quite easy to deal with. You block all the traffic from that IP address, and it means that then you can handle the situation. However, if we are able to fix a problem, then somebody invites a new problem. And that is the idea of distributed denial of service attack, where we make the destination busy. So this is not the way to teach you how to put down your university servers, absolutely not. So, but the idea is that you are able to do so that you want to put this server down. How you do it? You have multiple computers which are sending, for example, just ping messages, connectivity test messages to all over the world, but lying one thing, lying their own identity, saying that, by the way, our IP address is this. Meaning that all these computers all over the world are sending replies to the victim machine. And it is all the bandwidth is used, all the memory, all the resources of this computer is used by receiving these reply messages. And the problem is that it is not possible here to start to block these IP addresses, because these IP addresses are selected randomly. And you should select all the IP addresses of the world. You will say that we will not want any traffic from any address to our computer. And that was exactly what the attacker wanted you to do, that you are not serving anybody. So for that reason, the very basic access control list that we use here cannot provide us enough security to handle these systems. For that reason, we need far more complicated or far more flexible ways of creating access control lists. How much time I still have left? How much time?
20 minutes. 20 minutes.
I will let you decide. So please discuss yourself what is the right. 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay.
Right, 30 minutes.
Ten minutes. Okay, the final decision 10 minutes. Okay? Because I just wanted to be sure, because you know what kind of people teachers are. They can speak for hours and hours and hours, and I'm the worst kind of teacher. I really can do that. So, for that reason it's, so 10 minutes is what I have time left. So, what is important for us to understand is that we need more sophisticated methods. And the main challenge is that we must be able to think not only if some traffic is allowed, but we have to start to think who started the communication. What do I mean by this? So, if I skip some slides, it just related to this timing issue here. So, okay, you are now a little bit confused, so this is what I try to explain here. What we human beings typically think is that we are good and others are bad. So if they disagree with us, if they don't belong to the same group, there's something wrong with them. That is exactly the way the computer geeks also think. Computer geeks think that we are the good guys and them, I mean who is outside of us, they are the bad one. We have to be afraid of them. For that reason we think that any traffic that comes, that is starting from us, it's fine because we are the good guys. We never do any bad things. But if somebody comes from outside world to our network, our first idea is that there is something wrong with this. We have to be very careful because this can be trying to harm us. And this means that we have to use different rules for that traffic that we start compared to those rules that the communication is started by some outsiders. When you send a postcard, you don't give any warning. I just write your address there and drop it to the mailbox. And I know you don't want to receive any postcards from me, but still, you can't help it. It will be someday in your post locker. So this is the way you can handle it. But if I start to phone you, if I want to make a telephone call to you, you will take your phone. Oh, it's that awful Finnish guy. Red button. You don't answer. So it means that you are able to control this thing. When it comes to communication, computer communication, there are some cases which work like sending a postcard. You don't get any warning, and there are some cases where there is first this warning. Telephone rings, you can see the receiver, you either answer or you don't answer. And typically in computer communication, before we start on internet, I know that there are differences. Again, if there is someone who is specialist of this field, you can start to talk about UDP protocol and so on, but I will now, in a way, try to keep this simple at this level. So I'm not able to cover all the details. I hope you understand this. So that it is so that before we start to, for example, download any web page, we are first creating connection. We are like making this phone call. Is the connection okay? The other one says, yes it is, and then finally we say thank you. And after that we start the communication. This is important for this reason, that it gives us a possibility to analyze who is starting the communication. Is it this one or that one? And it is based on the information contained on IP packages. So when you were taking a look at this message for Sergey, you did very nicely. You even turned the paper the other way around. It means that the same thing here, any device in the between can analyze the traffic a little bit closer and find, is this connection started here or there? And based on that they can make a decision if we are able to allow this traffic or not. So we can say that we allow only traffic that is started with us, but not allow any traffic that is started by somebody else. And this one would be perfect if everybody would follow the rules. But they don't. Damn. It is like in, I don't know how it's in traffic is in Saint-Petersburg, but I was once in China, in a city called Wuhan, and I have never seen so crazy traffic like there. There was unbelievable amount of cars in a narrow roads, and still people were not driving the right line or the left line, but always on the middle. Because they thought that if this line goes faster, then I will take that, if that one. So they were always in the middle. So they didn't follow the rules. And the same problem is that when it comes to hacker or cracker community, they don't play according to the rule book. But they do all they can to violate the rules. And for that reason, for example, even though Internet rules clearly says that yes, we are able to say who starts the communication. Everyone who is with good intentions follows this rule. But somebody who is with bad intentions, they lie. They say that even though they start the communication, they say that no, this is an old communication that takes place. So for that reason, again, we need more sophisticated ways to do that. One possible way to handle this issue is that we can create this kind of rules that we call them reflective access control lists. These are these kind of rules that are like checking all outgoing traffic. So that first, all incoming traffic that is generated by outsiders, it is totally blocked. We just don't accept anything there. But because we are good guys, we can create connections to the outside world. And when we create this connection, at the same time we say to our router or firewall that drill a little hole to your firewall which lets through the return packages related to this communication that we created. And this hole does exist only as long as this connection is there. And it will then be dropped. There are more of these more complicated or, well, we could say more complicated ways to control access on the internet, but because there's the limited time, I'm not able to go through all of them. What is important lesson here is that we have to control access on the internet because there are people who have bad intentions and we have information that we want to secure. And for that reason we have to use some methods. Unfortunately, if we develop any method, somebody finds a way to bypass our protection. For that reason, this is a never-ending game. If you have some secure way to do it today, it is necessarily not a secure thing to do. So what is the summary of the session? Network security, like I hope all of us know, is that it's an important issue, and we must think topics like who can access our resources, how we can guarantee the confidentiality. This leads you to the encryption things that I did not mention at all here, and how can we make sure that the information is valid. This is related to different things like authentication and all integrity checking and so on. So that's all I had time here to explain to you related to access control. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer to them. And tomorrow I will continue from a totally different topic, but still a security-related issue. So if some of you still has problems to fall asleep, a good sleeping pill is offered again tomorrow at the same time. Yeah. Any questions? Neither am I just pretend to be.
I don't pretend at all. As far as I see, you use mainly Cisco systems.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Recently, I read about, if I'm not mistaken, it's American technology, edge technology. They control IP addresses inside the LAN.
Yeah.
Whether this approach is used everywhere or it's
So that, did you mean that like that they are using their own IP addressing and...
As far as I understand, they control MAC addresses.
Okay.
Inside the system.
Okay. Well, the thing is so that... what your professor asked here was that I was talking here about IP addresses and how we control them, and then there are computers have also other addresses which are called MAC addresses. Why? Why? Why do they need two addresses? The answer is that computers are unlike you. You are slow genius and computers are fast idiots. And for that reason, they are not able to handle these issues very well. Because we have to remember that when computer communication started, we were happy when we were able to send information from this computer to this printer. And we were like celebrating. Yeah, we were able to send information there. Cool. Then it meant that we created some technology for that. At some same time, other people developed a similar kind of technology, but not exactly the same. And they used, let's say that here we used letters to identify the devices. Here we use numbers to identify the numbers. And this leads us to this issue that we had one kind of addresses here, another kind of addresses here. Because we wanted to create an internet where all the computers can communicate. For that reason, we needed an additional layer, additional addresses there, which is the IP addresses. That no matter what physical addresses you use here and what physical addresses you use here, you still have the IP addresses that can identify all the computers. And now, your professor asked that, is it possible that we base our network security using these lower level addresses, these MAC addresses, instead of using these IP addresses? I would say that at something like 5 years ago, quite many organizations started to use that. For example, I know, now they are going to not let me to go back to my country, but for example, Finnish military forces used that kind of technology. However, then Microsoft released the new operating system, and the new operating system started to give you a possibility to lie your MAC address. Yeah. So that you are able to use whatever MAC address, not the one that is there on the network interface card, but you are just typing it there. And this one leads us to a situation that, no, unfortunately, the physical relationship between MAC address and network interface card was disappeared. And for that reason, using these lower level addresses for security doesn't today provide us any additional feature. You can use them if you want, but it's not giving us much security in that sense. Actually, I should thank to you because your question was an extremely great introduction to my topic tomorrow.
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
I'll teach you a little bit.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in our country, it's illegal to...
If not, then it's time for you to wake your neighbor and say that the lecture is finally over. And like I said, I will continue with the layer 2, I mean Ethernet level security things tomorrow. And then on Friday, it is more like, it is about security and Google search. That kind of things are what I discuss on Friday. So, thank you very much.